Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. We're talking IndyCar again today, and this time we're looking at past team and driver combinations that may have been forgotten over time. We already did this with Formula 1, so now it's IndyCar's turn. IndyCar overall has more of these than Formula 1, as you may see many more one-offs with teams running additional cars or partial season deals, and then there's obviously additional entries for the Indy 500. However, for this video, I decided to not use Indy 500 one-offs, as perhaps I may do a separate video just on some of those, but I did try to use some more recognizable names. Before getting into them though, if you enjoyed the video, then please give it a like and share the video, and if you want to see more similar content, then you can subscribe to the channel. For our first pairing, we had two of the biggest names in IndyCar history, and that would be Al Unser and AJ Foyt. Foyt was still driving for his own team through 1990, but at Road America that year he had a major accident which caused heavy damage to his feet and legs, which put him out of the car for months. Didier Taze filled in for Foyt at the final race of the season at Laguna Seca in 1890, and with Foyt not planning on returning until the third race of 1991 in Phoenix, rumors said that Taze may return to run the season's early races. That would not pan out though, and Foyt's team skipped the season opener in Surface Paradise, but for the second race in Long Beach the team ran a car for Bernard Jourdain. Foyt's return for Phoenix did not happen though, as it was decided to instead fully heal for Indy, and he turned to fellow legendary driver Al Unser to drive the car. Unser was sitting on the sideline for the year, but qualified 18th and had a difficult day before retiring after 105 laps after dealing with a vibration for most of the race, and was classified with a 17th place finish. Foyt finally returned for Indy, while Unser could not find a ride, leaving this the only time Unser raced for Foyt in his kart career. We remain with Foyt again, but this time with him being the driver instead. He drove pretty much his whole IndyCar career with his own team, but at the start of 1992 he competed in one race with a rival. I can find very little information about this one-off Foyt had, but it was listed as an entry with Walker Motorsport, but the car was the backup car for Leader Card Motorsport. Also, it appears that Foyt only decided to travel to Australia not long before the race weekend, and when he did so, did not appear to be planning on driving. The only real information I can find is the following excerpt from IndyCar Racing Magazine, which says, AJ took some laps on Thursday in a pace car which allowed him to start the race from the back of the pack in the leader car's backup machine. Buddy Lazier shook the car down on race morning so that Foyt could start the race. Transmission trouble ended his day in lap 2. He finished 23rd. I've seen it suggested that the drive could have been at start and park to get the race to a certain car count, and while I can't guarantee that's true, given the circumstances, I think that's at least a possibility. Meanwhile, the car on Foyt's team that day was driven by Gregor Wojtek, who also retired with a puncture early on. If anyone has any more information on this one, I'd be glad to hear it. Cale Fabi had raced on and off in kart since his impressive rookie season in 1983, and in 1995 he ended his full-time career where it started by racing for Forsyth. However, he was replaced by a young Greg Moore for 1996, but his services were still needed for a few races that year. Mark Blundell, who had switched to kart from Formula 1 in 1996, was competing with Pac West Racing, but in just the season's second race in Rio, he had a heavy accident resulting in injuries that forced him to miss a bit of time. Pac West went with one car for the next race at Surface Paradise, but for the following one at Long Beach, they brought in Fabi to race until Blundell was ready to go again. He retired from Long Beach and then raced again at the next round in Nazareth, and this time he finished 16th. Blundell was ready to come back for the next race in Michigan, and Fabi never raced in IndyCar again. So, we actually talked about a Jan Magnussen one-off with McLaren in the Formula 1 video, and we have Magnussen again in this video, but this time it's with Team Penske. Full-time Penske driver Paul Tracy suffered a broken vertebrae in a practice crash at Michigan, and was unable to compete at the next race in Mid-Ohio in 1896. This is where Magnussen stepped in. He was still seen as a rising star at this point, so it seemed like the perfect opportunity for him, although he was still recovering from a broken leg himself. Nonetheless, he was well enough to drive and qualified 18th and finished 14th after a brief excursion with Mark Blundell, who happened to be his teammate with McLaren during his one-off in Formula 1 at AIDA the year prior. Tracy returned for the following race at Road America, but Magnussen's services were still required, but this time with Hogan Penske racing in place of Emerson Fittipaldi. He suffered injuries that ended his IndyCar career in a crash at Michigan. Magnussen raced in the season's final 3 races in that car with the best result of 8th at the season finale at Laguna Seca, and also added a few more races with Patrick racing at the end of 1999, where he achieved the best result of 7th at Vancouver. We remain with Team Penske for this next one, but in order to do so, we move forward a few years to 1999. These were some of the weakest days in Penske's IndyCar history, and they decided to start 1999 running just a single car for Al Unser Jr. However, Unser broke his ankle at the opening race in Homestead, so Penske needed a replacement driver for the next few races. In stepped Tarso Marquez, who had a bit of Formula One experience with Minardi in 1996 and 1997. He had tested in the preseason with Dale Coyne Racing, and while the team was impressed, no deal was completed, so he was available to complete a test with Penske at Nazareth, in which he set the second fastest time. He finished 14th at his first race at Motegi, and then crashed out at the next race at Long Beach. Unser was ready to return at the next round at Nazareth, putting Marquez back on the sidelines, but after that, Penske ran 2 cars for a bit, and he competed in 4 of the next 5 races with the best finish of 9th in Rio. That was the end of Marquez's stint with Penske, although he did compete in most of the races with Dale Coyne in 2000, and then a few more in 2004 and 2005. Raul Boesel had a long career in kart dating back to 1985, and he was probably most associated with driving the Duracell car for Dick Simon Racing, but it was his rides toward the end of his career that may be more forgotten. 1997 was his last full-time season in kart, and he switched full-time to the IRL in 1998 and for most of the 1999 season, but his experience was still valued in the kart paddock. The All-American Racers car for Dan Gurney had a bit of revolving door in the driver lineup in 1999, and for 2 of those races they had Boesel drive for them. He first raced for the team at Chicago, in which he finished 12th, which was a solid result for the team, and he ran again with them at the season finale at Fontana, but this time he retired with an engine failure. The race was his final one in kart, but he did continue to compete in some races in the IRL throughout 2002. Max Pappas's IndyCar career would be most associated with kart, and particularly Team Rahal, but he also had a brief spell in the IRL. He raced in the Indy 500 for Eddie Cheever in 2002 and 2006, but at the 2002 season finale at Texas Motor Speedway, he was needed elsewhere. Team Penske driver Joe DeFrerin was injured in a crash at the previous race at Chicagoland, and despite still being mathematically alive for the championship, doctors did not clear him to race in the season finale. Needing someone to fill in, Penske went with Pappas, who did not have a full-time ride in kart anymore. Pappas qualified 18th, but had a difficult day and eventually retired with an engine failure in his only IRL race that was not the Indianapolis 500. Ryan Briscoe had a successful IndyCar career, most notably with Team Penske, but early on he had a brief stint in Champ Car. He hadn't done many races in IndyCar in 2006 apart from a few races with Dreyer and Reinbold, but late in the year he was needed to fill in at Rousport. Rousport's driver Cristiano D'Amata suffered a frightening accident during a test at Road America in which he collided with a deer that ran in track that put an end to his IndyCar career. Rousport ran just a sole car for Justin Wilson at the next few races, but for the final 2 races of the year added Briscoe to the team. His first race would be his home race at Surface Paradise, in which he qualified 11th and finished there as well, and that for the season finale in Mexico City, he had a very solid qualifying of 5th, but would finish down in 14th, which ended his very brief Champ Car career. When the 2 series merged before the 2008 season, it created a lot of excitement, but there were still a few problems. One of them was that arguably Champ Car's 2 biggest stars would not be competing in the unified series. Sebastian Bourdais was off the Formula One after 4 consecutive Champ Car titles, but Paul Tracy was without a ride as his Forsyth team was not making the switch over to compete apart from the Champ Car race at Long Beach. Tony George stated early in the year that he would like to see Tracy compete in the series, but it would be difficult to fit him in at his own Vision Racing team. As the year went on, rumors started to say that Tracy would be making a switch to the NASCAR Truck Series, and he would later compete in a race at Texas Motor Speedway that year. However, rumors also started to pop up that Tracy would actually compete in the IndyCar race in Edmonton with Vision Racing. This was finally confirmed a few weeks before the race that he would indeed race with Vision Racing with a car prepared by Walker Racing. Tracy qualified 16th, but had a very solid result, moving up to 4th in the race, but it would still be his only race of the year apart from the aforementioned Long Beach. He would compete over the next few years sporadically, with his last appearance at Las Vegas in 2011, but not again with Vision Racing. Considering some of the comments Tracy made about the IRL over the years of the split, Tracy and Tony George coming together for an entry has to be one of the most amusing and ironic entries. For our final one, we have Alex Tagliani at Chip Ganassi Racing. Tagliani drove most of 2013 for Brian Herta before sitting out the final few races, but at the penultimate race in Houston, Dario Franchitti had a heavy incident once his car got into the catch fencing, putting an end to his career. Ganassi then hired Tagliani to drive the 10 car at the last race of the season in Fontana to try to help the other Ganassi driver Scott Dixon win the title. Tagliani qualified 21st for the race but ran near the front at times throughout before crashing out in lap 209, ending his day. He was hoping to turn his one-off into a full-time driver with Ganassi for 2014, but the seat would ultimately go to Tony Kanaan, while Tagliani himself never got a full-time IndyCar ride again. So there you have 10 IndyCar team and driver combinations you may have forgotten over time. I'd be interested to know which one was your favorite and also how many of these you actually remember. Also, let me know if you want to see more of these forgotten combinations. Thanks for watching.